Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on this knife, and this is the Vampire Hunter from Jack Wolf Knives, made by Wright Knives. And so this is from the second run of the Vampire Hunter. There was a previous run, which I believe was actually the first USA made knife that Jack Wolf Knives brought out, but they were available at a blade show that I wasn't at, and so I missed them, and I was really excited to see that they were doing another run. Now, I've had this for a while, just haven't had a chance to make a video, and so they are unavailable again. They sold out really quickly, but I believe that Ben and Donnie and everyone at Jack Wolf Knives are always working on bringing more USA-made knives to the market. So I wanted to do a video on this knife, and so first of all, this is desert ironwood. You can see it has copper pins and Magna Cut steel. That's what the M stands for. And now I have no experience with Wright knives. The only kind of similar knife that I have is this knife. I've had this knife for a long time, and it's actually from Blind Horse Knives, which was before Blind Horse Knives split into two different companies, which are now Wright Knives and Battle Horse Knives. So this is from a long time ago, but it's very similar to some of the models that they have now. And so I've carried and used this knife a lot. You can see that I had this knife reground, and that was because I was not impressed really with the edge that it came with the primary grind that it came with. And yeah, I know there's a bunch of verdigris and stuff, but that's what you get for keeping a knife in a leather sheath for a long time. But anyway, I have carried and enjoyed and used this knife a lot, and so I was interested to see how Wright knives are. I actually set it up that we gave away an Wright knife at one of the jiu-jitsu super fight shows that we've done for my normal work. But anyway, this is made by Wright, and I was interested to see how the grind was. And that was kind of one thing that I was really happy with on this knife, is that the grind is really nicely done. I think it has a little bit thinner stock than Wright Knives typically uses, and then it has a pretty nice flat grind so that you do get a good cutting edge. This knife cuts great, and will definitely work for hunting, for EDC, for food prep, really anything that you want to use it for, because it has this really classic spear point blade. You can see it is a nice classic spear point with some swedging and just a really kind of, again, classic traditional look to it. And then it has a coffin shaped handle, which I really like. It reminds me a lot of some of Jack Wolf Knives' folding knives. You can see the Midnight Jack here with a coffin shaped handle. And then the Midnight Fixed EDC. So you can see this is one of Jack Wolf Knives' overseas produced or manufactured knives, but again, coffin shaped handle. Now you can see there's a difference here, and that is that this has a swell center. So it's actually a little bit more like their Vampire Jack, which I don't know that I have right here. Yes, I do. So it's a little bit more like this swell center coffin handle. Kind of like an analog of that. So if you're familiar with this knife from Jack Wolf Knives, this knife is very similar, but it's bigger, obviously. So you can see it's a longer knife, a little bit wider, but mostly longer, a little bit less pointy of a blade also. But a similar handle shape, which I think is a really classic looking handle shape. I really like it, and that was one of kind of the first things that I noticed about Jack Wolf Knives. I met Ben at one of the GEC rendezvous, and he had some of the prototypes of Jack Wolf Knives, and I really liked how this handle shape felt in the hand. And that's true on this, probably even more so than on the slip joint version. It just feels really good in the hand. It's a nice filling, because it's relatively thick, and my fingers fit two above and two below really, really nicely. So a good filling handle. Now, I will say that this handle seems to have a couple little cracks in it. And, I'm not familiar enough with desert ironwood to know if these will get worse or if it's typical, but I wasn't super thrilled about it. So you can see there seems to be a crack that kind of goes all the way from the pin to the handle here, or to the end here. And then this is probably just a fault, but there's one there, and then I think there's another one here. This one looks like it might have been filled in at some point, but that might have just been stuff there. But you can see that one goes to the edge also. I think there might be one on the other side too. Well, I think there's one at the, yeah, so right here, you can see that. Again, I don't know, that might be normal for desert ironwood, but this is, you know, it's not an inexpensive knife. It's actually around the same price as the one-hand opening Jack Wolf knives. It's about $350, I think, is what these were. But I'd prefer it to not have cracks in the handle. Now, as for the sheath, one thing with the sheaths on the original run of these is that some people had their tips go through the end. And now, I think that it was not very many people, like maybe 1 or 2 people, and of course a big deal was made of it. But I think it was pretty uncommon, but it is a thing. I mean, I know someone who had the threading here get cut, and they're not a person who's going to be just like beating on their knife senselessly. So, and they're a big fan of Jack Wolf knives too. So I don't think that it was something where people were hating on the brand, but I don't think it was super common either. When I got this, I did notice, to be honest, that when I put it in, the tip would slip between the welt here and the front, and you can actually see that this is where that tip was going. So I don't know that it got down to those threads, but something where, you know, you might have to watch for that even still. So what I did was I actually kind of bent it this way, so you can see that the sheath is actually bent this way. So, you know, it is hitting the welt now. It's not going to go through, but it did have a little bit of that. So just something to be aware of. Also, I think, you know, the reason why the welt, Ben said that, you know, you can only make the welt so wide before you start to lose retention. And I think that that is true, where, you know, it doesn't have the most solid retention. I mean, as you can see, it doesn't straight up fall out, but it has, you know, moved down from that. Now, you know, is that going to happen in your actual carry and use of this? Are you going to be shaken upside down? Probably not, right? I don't think it's a super practical worry that it would fall out or anything. I have carried this in my pocket. It does seem set up for pocket carry. You can see with this, I think this is Discreet Carry Concepts clip, and you know, I've had no trouble with getting it into the sheath or taking it out or having it slip out or anything. So it's not like a Kydex sheath. I would say that it's more than this, but as you can see, this sheath has weeds and stuff in it from carrying and using it in the woods. So that one has been used a lot, but it's not like a Kydex sheath, you know, just be aware of that. Otherwise, it's a very nice looking sheath. You can see that it's nice leather, it's nicely stitched, tailored by Cortez, and you know, he does a great job. So I think it's just one of those challenges that, you know, if you're not making knives, probably seems like it, you know, just make it so that it's not a problem, but I don't think that that's really how it works. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure to mention that, because I always try to be as honest as possible in my videos. But I think it's a really classic looking knife. I think this is the best looking version in my opinion. There were other versions, but feels good in the hand. The blade is great, cuts well. I do really wish that it didn't have those cracks, and I would like, you know, a little bit less worry with the sheath, I guess I would say. But I am very happy to see Jack Wolf Knives having knives made in the USA. I do think that it's a nicer knife than this knife. You know, I think that this is it's an interesting design, but it's a very different knife. This is the prickly pear. You can see it has torque screws instead of pins, and you know, it's much thicker grind, but you know, also a different price. So I was really happy to get this knife, even if there's some things that I didn't love about it, and I hope that Ben keeps having knives made in the USA for Jack Wolf Knives. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife related topics. I want to say a big thank you to Ben for sending knives for me to check out. I bought this one on the drop, but I've been super lucky to check out lots of Jack Wolf knives, and I really love what Ben is doing. So again, looking forward to more from Jack Wolf knives, and especially USA made knives. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.